As a mental health advocate and author, I love books. Books have the capacity to inspire, educate, transform, and ultimately help readers all over the world. So if you want to publish your book or if you need help writing your story, I highly recommend Mindstir Media, rated the #1 best book publisher around the country. Mindstir Media can help you no matter where you are in the book writing or publishing process. Go to mindstirmedia.com to learn more and schedule a consultation.
Out Comes the Sun with Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi. Out Comes the Sun compassionately helps you navigate mental wellness practices that you can apply to your daily life. And we tell your story. And now, Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Out Comes the Sun Radio. We're having a great show today. We have a really great guest. But first, we're going to talk about writing today. We're going to talk writing and critical thinking because it's a conversation, as you know, that Melissa and I probably had while we were walking in the morning. And it's such an important concept. I mean, it's not a concept. It's actually, but nobody knows how to do it. That's what's crazy. Like when I think of kids nowadays, I say kids, I think of a generation that have come out of high school. And for the most part, most of them are not taught critical thinking. So it's kind of what you were saying to me about your son, you know, and your mother, you know, she used to teach school and she used to teach writing.
My mom was probably, without doubt, one of the best teachers I ever had. And she gave us a lesson in understanding critical thinking and how to play devil's advocate on your thought processes to enrich and strengthen your own thoughts. Yes. And one thing that she had us do, an exercise, and I shared it with you, I'd love to share it with our audience. One year, I remember she had us, without bias, pick a political figure. This is junior grade, your junior level of high school. So she had us pick a political figure that we thought was in question for whatever it was, whether it was Gary Hart or whoever it was, right? And so I chose Nixon because there had been so much that had happened in '73. I wasn't in high school then, but that was a time that everyone could easily pinpoint. I thought it'd be an easy figure to write about. And so she pulled me up and had me stand in front of my class, my peers, and face them and tell them why I thought Nixon was a political figure that was in question. And so I began, pinpointing all the facts as I saw them. She had told my classmates to write down everything that I'd been saying. Right. She then told them that they were journalists now, and they were going to be questioning me on every single point that I'd made. And it was my job now as Nixon to defend every single point. And so I stood there fielding all the snowballs that were being thrown at me, all the hard pitches, I should say, and fielding it, defending my positions. That paper, whenever she taught us those lessons, learning to see the other side because what you see depends on where you stand. When you're looking at the other side, it enriches your ability to stand behind your values, to stand behind, instead of just being one-sided and say, well, I believe this way because my parents did, or I don't know, it just feels right. Having the facts is the true essence of critical thinking, because you can then move from logic before you strictly fly in with emotion.
Right. No, it's powerful. And there's something about also stepping into somebody else's shoes in a way, right? And coming from their perspective that gives you a whole turnaround view of everything. Because once you say it from another person's perspective, that also changes your
absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you have to speak someone else's voice, if you have to be them, it changes things for you, right? So I have a nephew. I have
Yes.
3 nephews, and this is the eldest of all.
I was gonna ask if we could.
Yeah, I have a nephew who underwent an exercise and a counseling program. He's, I always give him kudos because you and I talk about all the time on our show about the value of working on self. This is an evolutionary process, and we will be working on ourselves, those of us who choose to evolve continuously from here till there. And so my nephew is a part of a program where he was in one of the instructions he received was to make a list of the people with whom he was the most angry.
Yeah.
And he said that, some of the people in the group were told, okay, you can stop writing now, but they're like, I'm just getting started. But then they were told to take that list of candidates and reduce it down to the top 2 who had earned the top 1 and 2 spots that merited your anger, your ire, right? And so then the lesson was to get out a piece of paper and write a letter to each person or each group or whatever, however it laid out. Write a letter to this person explaining why they made the top 1 or 2 position, explaining it all in the letter. And everyone did the exercise and it felt really cathartic. Everyone felt great about it. That was not the end of the lesson. The exercise then called on them to respond to themselves as though they were the person who had received the letter of vitriol. So now they had to write back as the other person. Yeah. And so my question was, when you were responding to yourself as person A, do you think you gave him or her the voice on how you heard them in your head or how you imagined he or she would really respond? He said the latter. I wrote as though I knew that's how this person would respond. And so when I said, what did you learn from that? He said, it allowed me to pull away and realize outside of my anger, I think this person's kind of messed up on my perspective, but I believe he or she is doing the best he or she can, even though it's not the best for me. And he said, he said, you know what? It freed me a little bit of that anger. And I love this lesson.
It's a powerful exercise because after you told me about it, I did it with, I have somebody in my life that, whatever, like we all do.
Yep.
And, to be honest, I haven't written it down, but I imagined it. So I need to write it down because it's far more powerful that way. And I know that because I know that taking pen to paper, and when I say pen to paper, that's important. Like that energy that comes into a pen and writing on a piece of paper in a journal is different than typing it out on your computer, which is a lot easier and a ton quicker.
That's right.
Something about making that commitment to that. And it's just the imagination of doing it is obviously not as powerful, but even in the imagining, and our guest today talks about the imagination being the greatest, one of the greatest.
Powerful.
Our imagination is very, very powerful to the brain. But even in my imaginings of this person and me writing back as that person to me, I realized that this person can only see from this perspective. It's like you said, you can only, you are only, how do you put it?
What you see depends on where you stand.
Yeah. And that is the key. And and that's critical thinking. And once you have an understanding of somebody else's journey, it's that thing about having compassion. If you realize that everybody out there has their own issues and is suffering in some way.
That's right.
That makes you have a little bit more compassion. It's hard, when somebody cuts you off, you're driving, they cut you off and you're like, ugh. But the truth is you don't even know if they were paying attention. Sometimes I see people that do that and they didn't even know I was there. Right. Yeah. So you have to just go, wow, I guess God is protecting me because I didn't get in an accident, but everybody is dealing with something and everybody gets caught in their head. And that's what's great about our guest today.
Oh, he's so good.
He really takes those thoughts that we repeat and that are part of the past or part of the future and turns them on its head and brings us back to the now. And the now is you're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio. And the next, the future, you're going to have an amazing guest that we're going to be speaking to. So stay right where you are. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio with Melissa Yamaguchi and Mariel Hemingway. Welcome back, everybody, to Out Comes the Sun Radio. We have an incredible guest today. His name is Billy Mandarino. Billy Mandarino has written an incredible book called The Now-ist. I'm super excited about this book because I spent so much of my young years reading The Power of Now and listening to it on tape. And he's come up with a book that is really teaching people how to become more aware of the gifts of being in the present moment from a very practical and easy way. His hit book, The Now-ist, is full of wisdom from his own journey. Billy dives deep into the essence of us all and breaks down present moment living in a very, very unique way. And now for the great and wonderful Billy Mandarino.
Thank you so much, Mariel. That was so kind of you. I appreciate it. I'm really honored to be here on Out Comes the Sun. What an incredible radio show and podcast you and Melissa have.
Oh, well, we're loving it. We're definitely having a good time. So tell us what I know, I was joking. Literally, like, that was a thing for me, being present. I used to have a yoga studio. So I taught yoga workshops, and I always had something about, be here now, which was, who was that? Was that Wayne?
Ram Dass.
Yeah, Ram Dass, sorry, but it was all, being present is such an important thing. It's a simple thing, but it's so hard for most of us to do. So tell us really, what is Now-ist?
Well, you hit it, Mariel. The reality is, anytime we're in a conversation with somebody, just like right now in this radio show podcast, 50% of our awareness is not spent where our feet are. 50% of the time when you're in a meeting, you're with your kids, with your family, your spouse, your significant other, wherever you are, 50% of the time, your awareness is not where you are, where your physical feet are. So this study, I think it was a Harvard study that came out, proved that, good Lord, half of the time we are living out of present moment awareness. And in my life, I think all of us can agree that stress has been a big player in all of our lives, and how to deal with stress, how to overcome stress, how to deal with the trauma of our past by spending so much energy on how to fix that trauma. But your awareness is never really in the present moment. You're in the past, you're in the future. I mean, it's hackneyed, it's been over to mindfulness, breathing. There's so many different ways to be in the present moment. But for me, this book came through me, if you will, because I was dealing with all kinds of trauma, childhood trauma, emotional trauma. I was paralyzed a few years ago from COVID. I had to learn to walk again, had to learn to talk again, spent 21 days in the hospital. So I had to use these things that I've been diving into for the last probably decade of my life, like an obsession. It's not like a teaching. For me, it's like an obsession to help people learn how to live in the present moment as a way of life, not as a catchphrase or a cute, cool word like Now-ist. It's more of a practical process of how to learn to get out of your mind, out of your thinking mind, make sure your awareness is where your feet are, and to live in present moment awareness as a way of life. My mission is to create this legion of Now-ists, people that learn to live in the present moment as a way of life, and how to live 90% of your day, your 24 hours in the day. I mean, 8 of it is sleeping, but to live in that present moment awareness as a way of life. 10% of the day, you're going to have bills to pay, appointments to take care of, to-do lists. But if you can live in that ratio, the craziest thing happens. This osmosis of living in present moment awareness, it takes over, and your subconscious programming starts to run your life, opposed to your conscious mind is trying to live in physical time, but learn how to get out of present moment. You're constantly convincing yourself that there's no power here. But the reality is that's the lie. All the power to change your life is in the present moment.
Well, I totally agree. I would just say something slightly different about, I don't think it's I think that it's not conscious thoughts that are running your life. I think it's unconscious thoughts. Like
subconscious.
Subconscious. Well, subconscious is different. Subconscious is where you are the subconscious is alive and aware of many different things. The unconscious is when you don't realize that you've repeated 85,000 thoughts today and tomorrow and the next day. So what I love about your book is that it makes it's a simple practice, really. And yet it's a profound practice, because to actually be in the present moment would change everybody's life. And I'm sure it changed yours. I'm sure it's how you healed.
It truly was. Real quick, it was New Year's Eve, 2019. My wife turned 50 and we were in lockdown here. And we couldn't have any parties. And my wife turned 50 and I wanted to have a party for her, a big party. She loves to party. So Miami was wide open. So we fly to Miami, we go to the Fontainebleau, have this beautiful time. We fly back 3 days later. We both come down with COVID, the alpha strain, the virulent, really dangerous strain, the very first time that this hit the world. Then my daughter and I and my wife all lived together with COVID here, and they healed in a couple of days. I haven't had a flu or a cold in over a decade prior to this, but I was in this bed right here for 10 days with 102 fever, and I was starting to get pneumonia in my lungs. It was starting to become, COVID lung, as they called it back then. The doctor says, if he doesn't break his fever, we're going to take him in. And I know that it's the number 3 cause of death is hospitalization. I knew this because I've talked about it. Heart disease, cancer, number 3 is hospitalization. So I was fearful of that, knowing that, oh my gosh, this thing is taking over my body. So ultimately, all my family, I didn't tell anybody because my dad had open heart surgery. All my brothers and sisters, we're this big Italian family. Everyone started praying for me, and I broke the fever on the 11th day, stayed here for 12 days, quarantine, got better, and I love to golf. So I decided, I feel great, like I do now, talking to both of you. I went out, played 10 holes, carrying my bag. I was fine. The next morning, I wake up. I can't feel my face, my hands, my feet, my stomach. 2 days later, I was paralyzed. So my wife and daughter carry me down the stairs, get me in the car, send me, and the worst goodbye I've ever had in my life, in a wheelchair to the ER at Cottage. And they, after 4.5 hours of being in an MRI tube and a spinal tap, they decided that what I had was Guillain-Barré syndrome from COVID. So I was the only case in southern Santa Barbara County, 460,000 people, that had Guillain-Barré syndrome from COVID. So I was completely in this state of overwhelm, paralysis. But what I relied on was 50% of the wonderful doctors, the internal medicine doctors, that gave me this IVIG, which physically helped heal my body. But the other 50% was my subjective attention, the power of my awareness, the power of my imagination, where I allowed myself to go through what it felt like to be completely healed, to live in that end instead of about the end. I was already there. And 21 days later, I walked out of the rehab with a cane. 2 weeks after that, I was golfing again. So I applied all of this in this incredible, what I call my spiritual, it was a spiritual practice. It wasn't some terrible ailment or this thing that fell on me that was going to ruin my life. It became a spiritual practice. I felt like I was this, I call it my COVID cocoon. I was like this monarch butterfly going through this rigmarole, you only elevate to this higher self. And it was a gift. It was truly a gift.
Do you have some practice? Do you have some things that you do every day to get you in that into that state that you could share with people?
I do. I've created a meditation called the Now-ist meditation. It takes 1 minute, and I do it every morning. I do it throughout the day. If I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed, I do this 1 minute meditation. And I'm going to give you the 4 prayers. It's a little more complex. If you go to billymandarino.com, you look at my YouTube channel, we got 560 free videos of teaching on there, Instagram, Facebook, I'm all over those. But I teach it in depth in these videos that are free. Or you come to my live events, you can do it in person for 2 days with the Now-ist Experience Live, which is a full immersive experience. But the prayer is a 1 minute prayer. So while I was in that MRI tube, I'm claustrophobic. And being in MRI tube for 4.5 hours, the really tight one, you're not the big one, the one where exactly. And I couldn't feel anything initially. I couldn't feel anything. I really could barely move. And I never opened my eyes for 4.5 hours. They couldn't knock me out. I said, knock me out. I'm totally claustrophobic. Just knock me out. They said, well, I call him Daniel the torturer. He was my MRI tech. And he said, I'm a Reiki master. I'm going to be sending you energy. It's going to get to the magnet. And I'm thinking, okay, man, Daniel, kick it in, because I'm freaking out. And I didn't want to push the red button because I was so immersed in this experience. I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is use my imagination, which I believe is one of the most incredible gifts we've ever been given, along with my breath and this meditation. 4.5 hours. It was a mantra or a mudra or a constant chant. I was singing, I was chanting. He said I had to stop because my diaphragm was moving and the images were getting all blurry, but I was trying to survive. And I used this meditation, and how it starts is you hover above the earth. You imagine yourself, you're 3 miles above the earth, and you see that blue arc of the earth. You're up there. Imagine, Melissa and Mariel, if you were in that space, that ether, if you're above the earth, wouldn't you just be in absolute awe? Like you would be so, how could the gravity of your problems take you into that awareness? It would not, you would be free. So in this cocoon, this cove cocoon I was in, being up there, I felt free. So I let my imagination just take me on this out of body journey, if you will. And so I was saying these 4 prayers. I am that I am, the conquering presence in the now. I have nothing to do, only to be done. I am altogether God, and God is altogether me. I am the light of the world. And saying these prayers, and when I say I am the light of the world, I imagine the sun is cresting the earth, and it's hitting my body, and it's filling me full of conscious light energy. And I'm sending that energy like a conduit, if you will, from 3 miles up to me in the MRI tube. And I kept filling myself with light and with consciousness and higher levels of energy, not fear-based energy, not thinking, thought-based energy, but higher self energy. That conduit tethered me to the higher self. And so I did that for 4.5 hours. And that is what helped me heal, along with hundreds of people in the city praying for me. My room looked like a floral shop. My buddy, who's a great writer, he wrote an article about it while I was in the hospital. It was on the cover of the Montecito Journal. So all these people that know me in this city were praying for me. So I know it's 50% cottage. I love the doctors there. We're so lucky to have Cottage Hospital in this community. Yep. The other 50% was this subconscious collective energy, this conscious collected energy that healed me.
That is, oh man.
You know what I like about that? You were an active participant. And that's what I always like. I like when people actively participate in their own lives. And even in a moment of crisis, I mean, I'm claustrophobic too. And I was looking for a panic button near my microphone because I was feeling it while you were in it. But one of the things that I started thinking about, I love this meditation. I love it because it's tangible almost. It's easy to translate. I have a question for you. In that league of Now-ist that you're building, what do we tell the moms and dads and people, everyone, actually it's every living being right now, who are addicted to their phones? Because what we find, right, Billy, that people grab the phone before they get out of bed, before they say their morning mantra of gratitude for being able to open their eyes, before they recognize whether or not it's sunning or raining or whatever it is, they grab the phone. And the dopamine hits that we get from the constant stimulation, my fear, and I'm not fear-based, I'm actually pretty brazen, if you will, but I get fearful thinking, how are we going to learn how to slow it down? I love the concept of now, because now is really, it's all you have. It's all you have. And you'll never be as young as you are now, or as beautiful, everything, right? Everything's great. So here you are. What do you tell those that how do we break from technology to survive now, to be now?
I love that question because I get it a ton. And I unfortunately have the same answer because for me, it's the truth and it's what comes through for me. I love poetry and I love William Wordsworth. He says, not choice, but habit rules the unreflecting herd. Not choice, but habit rules the unreflecting herd. Yeah. So if we are ruled by our habits, not our choice, we grab our phone when we wake up, we watch the news when we wake up, we have these terrible habits. If you don't interrupt these habits, you don't start a new subconscious way of living every day, repetitious. If repetition is the mother of skill, right? The more you consistently do it, it becomes part of that 95% that controls your subconscious awareness. So if you can interrupt your habit and make a new choice, because not choice, it's your habit. People aren't making choices. They're caught up in their habit. You have to, that's why what I start my day every day with, in the same bed that paralyzed me or I recovered from, I start with gratitude right here. The left hand's covering the heart because the venous amoris vein, which goes right to your heart where your wedding ring is on, it's right there. Then my right hand is covering it. I breathe into my heart gratitude every morning. After I've done my gratitude prayer, I get up, I go to the slider, I look at the ocean, I do the Now-ist meditation, which also has a great arm movement and a breath. That's why it's a little more complex than just teaching a 1-minute meditation on your wonderful show. Out Comes the Sun. I love that title because that's the last part of the prayer. I am the light of the world. You imagine the sun is coming over you. So if you can do this convergent meditation, which is an open-eyed meditation, or divergent meditation, is out and there's in. If you can learn to do it with your eyes open and your eyes closed, that becomes a regular prayer that you do while you're driving, if you're conscious. You do it while you're walking on the beach, while you're walking your dog, while you're doing the dishes, while you're cooking breakfast. It becomes a new habit, just like words were said. We have a new choice to interrupt the people that are addicted to their phone. You have to make a conscious choice to start a new habit, to subconsciously program that 95% that we're doing every day.
Yeah, well, you have to do a pattern interrupt, and that's what you've created. It's amazing. What would you say are the 7 habits that you use every day? You have they're in your book, but
that's the 7 habits. Okay, well, I have 9 actually.
Okay.
But I'll break it down to 5. I'll break it down to my favorite 5.
Okay.
And there's the 9 in the book, there's 5, but there's this 5 it's my newest favorite framework. It's called emergence trauma. Because I don't know about you, when we came out of the pandemic, there was this extreme trauma. My daughter is 16. She arguably went through the hardest 2 years of her life coming through the pandemic. My wife's a high school teacher. So Zoom from home, right? Social media, you're locked down. I mean, that's a developmental part of this young brain. And emotionally, right? We already know that anxiety is at an all-time high. Mm-hmm. I've read that teen suicide has gone up 350% post-COVID. So I speak to schools, I speak to middle schools. I've been doing this for a decade where I help them deal with their overwhelmed anxiety and stress, how to get in the present moment. I get like an hour to work with these classes. I've been doing it. My wife's a high school teacher. I love teaching the youth. But my daughter being 16 and going through this, I think about the emergence that they've come through and the trauma that they really haven't emerged from. That's why I call it emergence trauma. And my good friend, Michael Bowker, who wrote that Montecito Journal article, and we're working on another project now, but he and I worked on this framework thinking, how can we help the youth, specifically the youth, get through this? And emergence trauma, we worked out this framework, which we did an event last May at the Hilton here. It was the Now-ist Experience Live, and we introduced this framework there. So step 1 is you have to identify the trauma. Identify your trauma. What is your trauma? Step 2 is if you have identified the trauma, what would your life look like if it was different? Like, what does your trauma look like? And how you have to use your imagination. Once again, the greatest gift you've ever been given. What does your emergent self look like? Then who are the people in your circle that can help support you in that emergence? Like, who are your friends? Who are your family? Who are your best friends? It could be your dog. We have a beautiful dog was never a therapy dog, but for our daughter, she's an only child. That dog has been, its new moniker is therapy dog, because it's done its service hours with my daughter the last 2 years dealing with this. So who are the people or the friends or the entities, the beings around you? Sometimes it could be a being that's passed away. I mean, some people connect with our loved ones that have passed. Yeah. Who are the beings that can support you in this emergence? And then how do you think from the end of that emergence, not about the end? I don't know if you've heard that before. There's a wonderful teacher named Neville Goddard. And I learned that from Neville Goddard via Dr. Wayne Dyer, that you learn to think from the end, not about the end. From the end, gosh, when I get through all this, I'll be happy. When I finally get to this emergence, I've done 10,000 hours of therapy, I'm going to emerge. But from the end is every day, every morning you wake up, every night before you go to bed, you're in that end. I'm already emerged through. I see the new shiny self that is me. I see the end. I'm already healed. I'm already done. I'm already serving people from that light that I am. So that's step 4. Then at the end, you just want to pay it forward. Step 5 is pay it forward. How can you take your trauma, your spiritual practice that's become your trauma, and then help somebody else?
Love it.
It's so good. Go ahead, Melissa.
No, I want to create. I hope that the Now-ist accept the challenge, and those are of us that are wasist and gonna be it's can come into the now and really take this as a challenge. I want to, I have friends who have a basket that everyone has to put their cell phone in when they come into the house and kind of give themselves a break so they can reconnect as family. Or in business meetings, you'll hear people leaving cell phones outside, not just for the succession rule, but to keep the phone so they can be present in the meetings instead of constantly looking to see what's happening on social media or their email. And I think this is a really beautiful challenge. It's as important as important as taking the motion of watching over your health. It's every bit as important. Removing what's the word I'm looking for? The
extraneous stuff.
All the distractions. Because you know what? You can't get ahead of them. You're not going to overcome the distractions by the way they creep in. So you've got to learn how to pull in and get strong within. And I love this. I love your whole approach. I am
Thank you.
now a part of your league.
Hey, amen. It's a mission. It's a mission. It's a ministry. It's not so much, when I get this number, when I've reached the critical mass of pi, right? 3.1, whatever that number is. But I do know that Dr. Wayne Dyer, God rest Dr. Wayne Dyer's soul, he is in my book. He was the initial spark that allowed me to bring this book into the physical world. It was Dr. Wayne Dyer. I love him, never met him, but I studied his works like a master's degree. And, he wrote this book, this film and book called The Shift. I don't know if you both have seen it, The Shift.
Yes.
He said, if 10,000 people in North America can watch this movie, we could create this shift of consciousness. So similarly, I'm trying to pick up that mantle. So I think maybe a few million people have seen that movie, but it's a wonderful film, teaching so much of what his whole life mission was about the power of intention.
I recognize a lot of Wayne. I actually was fortunate enough I used to work for Spiritual Cinema Circle, which was part of Gaiam years ago. Anyway, and I got to interview him, and he was
oh my gosh.
So he was just he was so normal and yet extraordinary at the same time. And you know what I love about what you're doing? It's so normal and it's extraordinary at the same time, right? I think it's wonderful that you've been guided and kind of propelled by the desire to help your teenage daughter. I mean, Melissa and I are just like, our focus, we have a foundation that we started called the Mariel Hemingway Foundation.org, so that we want to become a resource navigator. But because people don't know the practical things to do, nobody knows where to go, nobody knows what to do. And what you're providing is very tangible. And thank you for that, because, sometimes you'll listen to these great minds, but it seems like, oh my God, where are they? And I can't do that. It's like, they're not speaking my language. You're speaking the language of all of us as parents, as people in the workplace, as, as friends, as coworkers, whatever. You're just speaking a language that we can all understand, because it is possible for all of us to be present. And it's not a woo-woo thing. It's actually the healthiest place you can live. You're not thinking about tomorrow, and nothing about your past matters here in this moment. And it's not going to get you now, because there's no problem right now, right?
Absolutely.
And that better than most everybody.
Let's talk about the 6 degrees of separation. My husband's name is Billy, and my Billy is a hairstylist who cut the hair of Wayne Dyer's daughter in Hawaii. Okay.
There we go.
I think we have a movie. I feel
oh my gosh. That's how we get it out there. It's in Santa Barbara, you've realized it's the 1 degree of separation, right? So there it is, the 1 degree.
Yeah.
It's right
honestly, here. If you're in Santa Barbara, I really do feel like everybody's like uber connected, because I live in Sun Valley, part-time, Sun Valley, Idaho, and then I'm in LA, but I feel like I should be in Santa Barbara when I'm not in Sun Valley, because everybody in Sun Valley goes to Santa Barbara.
Well, your heart of service and your soul, Mariel, is obviously part of, because Sun Valley is spectacular. Montecito, Santa Barbara, the American Riviera is spectacular. These energies in these areas that we live, they just do something. I always say Santa Barbara chooses you, you don't choose Santa Barbara, right? Sun Valley chooses you, you don't choose Sun Valley. It's just kind of allowing yourself to be taken instead of being so clever. We're always trying to be so clever, right? And to figure it out. You have to allow, let go, let God, as they say in the recovery movement, right? Just let go.
Right. And following that inner voice, which will guide you to exactly where you're supposed to be in the moment, in the right time. But you also mentioned something that's extremely important. We have to find what our trauma is first. And I always say, you got to tell your story first, then realize it's a bloody story. Like, it may not be bloody, but it could be.
Right.
Like you just go, okay, that's my story. That happened. It's film on the floor. Now we get to be here and enjoy that. And you used it as a tool to heal, and you sharing that, and your exuberance in sharing it is so exciting and so cool, because you can tell that that it works. Because when you're at death's door and you're like, geez, I may not make it, and then you realize that it was, yes, you're thanking the cottage hospital. Yes, we have the most amazing emergency care in this country of anywhere in the world. But ultimately, our healing, especially for things like what you went through and mental illnesses, has a lot to do with our taking responsibility and changing the way that we think, because how we're thinking is creating problems in the body. If you're not thinking, if you're thinking in the past or you're thinking in the future, you're worried about this, that, and the other thing, you're not going to heal.
Oh my God, you're so right on the money. And step one for any teachings I do, coaching, when I do the live events, it's always step one is awareness.
Yes.
Awareness. The minute you know you're in stress, that's the first step out of stress. Dr. Wayne Dyer, Neville Goddard, Eckhart Tolle, they all teach the same step one. Are you aware? Are you taking responsibility for your trauma, for what's happened? Being aware that you're in stress is your first step out of stress. But most people don't have that awareness because they don't have that new tool, that new habit, that new ritual to help them get into step one quickly. And for me, it's so uncomfortable to be out of the present moment that I just quickly become, back in the present moment because it feels so uncomfortable because of a habit, because of a subconscious programming. That's the deep work, is to get it into that subconscious mind. Get it so it just becomes like effortless. Like for me, hitting a golf ball, hitting a tennis racket, or baking bread, or whatever is your crocheting, whatever your thing is, it's just subconscious. Make spiritual practices like being a Now-ist part of that subconscious programming.
Oh, I love that. I love that, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, I'm actually not thinking as much as I might normally, but I'm reminding myself, just listen, right?
Be present, right? Exactly.
Right? Don't like, well, what am I going to say next?
I need more help because I got lost on a baked bread. I haven't had bread in about 3 months, so I got lost on baked bread.
Oh my God, bread is my kryptonite. I love it. Oh my God.
And my grandmother used to make the best homemade sourdough bread. And so you said baked bread and I immediately flew back. But
yeah, that's okay.
I did have a moment where I was not in the present. My mother had baked bread too. I was like,
hey, if it feels good, they say feeling good and feeling God is the same. So
if it makes you happy.
feeling good is nothing wrong with that.
Oh my gosh. No, there's nothing wrong with that. Billy Mandarino, you are Mandarino. I've got that correct.
Mandarino.
Yeah? Mandarino. It's a sing song.
You and your whole family is just, it's like
oh my gosh, speaking of that, we're going to Corleone, Idaho Thursday for a big Italian family reunion, so we're getting so excited for that. So
oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you. That's one of the more beautiful places in the world. It's not where I live, but it's
Sun Valley's down south, right? You guys are south of that.
It's southeastern Idaho. Yeah, it's kind of right in the middle. You're going to go up to the Panhandle. It's gorgeous. It's so beautiful. And this is like the most amazing year because there's been so much water.
Oh, it's green. It's rushing water. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Wow.
You're a magical human. We are so excited to have had you on as a guest. Thank you, Billy. Please come back and talk to us. I want to know the progress of being a Now-ist. I want to be a Now-ist.
Amen.
Yeah. And I want to introduce him next time. Ladies and gentlemen, coming up on Out Comes the Sun, we have the magical Mandarino. People are going to be thinking that we're going to disappear or something.
The great awesome. Mandini, yes. You two are amazing. Thank you so much. What an honor to be on Outcomes.
Thank you.
You're both lights in the world. Thank you for letting me kind of slip in there with you and shine a little brighter with you all three together.
Oh my God, that's
Thank you. You're beautiful. This is great.
Oh, you're an amazing soul too. So God bless you. And
thank you. God bless you both.
I'm so glad you made it through all that.
Hey, I'm just so grateful. It's all gratitude, they say, is the best multiplier. I'm just more grateful every day.
I bet. Awesome. Well, thank you, Billy.
Thank you both.
Welcome back to Out Comes the Sun with Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi. 'Tis me. I'm here to share an energy tip with you. I would like to share with you the energy around babies in the house. When you bring a baby into your home, we often get ready for a baby. We have in our culture, in many cultures, we have baby showers where we are giving the parents to be little onesies and diapers and maybe crib bumpers or whatever it is, or strollers, whatever they've put on their list of wishes. But in feng shui and in the concept of energy, the way you set up the baby's room, the nursery, or where you'll have the baby's things is very important. So I'd like to go over some of those with you. The first is the understanding of colors. Now, for the first couple of months of baby's life, he or she will only see in black and white. So the need to go overboard on a lot of different colors at first is really it's not a futile attempt, because you want the baby's room to be pleasing to mom or dad as they go in there and take care of child. But the baby will only see in black and white. So little mobiles over the bed or little drawings around with black and white design are really stimulating and good for baby's brain. But colors, as you do introduce them, we are wont oftentimes to have these beautiful pastels in the room for baby, but we want to help stimulate baby's brain. And so primary colors, once beyond the black and white, primary colors are very good to use in feng shui. Now, if you don't want to have the red, the blue, and the yellow in the baby's room, then most certainly you could pick one of. But bringing in a primary color is really good stimulation for baby. The next thing to consider is the location of the room for baby. And oftentimes we think, well, this is the best room for baby, but is it? Is it the best, most convenient room for baby when it comes to baby's sleep, or mom or dad's time alone with baby when they're rocking baby to sleep and they're going in there to be with baby when baby's not feeling well or whatever? Is that location away from all the noise in the house and away from maybe where that side of the house gets too hot? If that's the room you have, then you must ensure that the room is protecting baby. The cocoon for the nursery room has to be energetically cocooning. It has to be that way. Sound and temperature and everything, it all has to be conducive to a healthy, continued growing space for baby. The next thing that I want you to take in consideration is natural light. Please have a room where natural light can come in for baby. It's so incredibly important. But again, if the baby's room, which is in this area that you've chosen of the house, does not have a window for some reason, then bring in lighting that you can purchase. The hardware stores have lighting now that can emulate the sun. It's not the exact same, obviously, but you would have this in the room. And they also have timers where the light will come up as though it's the sunrise as baby's awakening. Now, God knows that babies don't always follow the way an alarm set, because they'll wake up when they want, but it's nice to have this in their room. Another thing that you need to take into consideration is to have low or no tech. You want the room to not have a lot of electrical things in it. There's so many gadgets now. I have a friend whose daughter is giving birth, and she sent me a wish list that the daughter had put together for gifts. And a large chunk of them were technical and things to put in the baby's room to make life easier, from a diaper genie to a white sound noise, all this stuff. Now, I just told you earlier that location is important. And if it's a loud room and you think, well, I'm going to bring in some white noise that'll calm it down for baby, sure. But you need to minimize low or no tech when possible for baby, please. And then the very last thing I want to say is minimize what you have in the room. If limiting clutter is important in feng shui, which it is, in baby's room, keeping it minimal as it is a really great reminder that it's all about baby. When people are going to be giving you gifts and clothes and things that are going to be coming in for baby, and you may even buy a bunch of things for baby, this is fine. But keep things minimal in the room so that it's always zeroed in on focus on baby. These are my feng shui tips for the day. I hope that you've been able to find one or two things that you can use. Now stick around. Coming up next, teaching you about health and balance, is Mariel Hemingway. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun.
Welcome back, everybody, to Out Comes the Sun Radio. And I'm going to give you a tip, a health tip, a balance tip. And Melissa's talking about stimulating a baby, but also keeping it simple. I want to talk about stimulating our own brains. Like, how do we stimulate our own brains? How do we keep a vibrant brain as we get older or whatever? I mean, maybe not even as we get older. These are habits that we should all be doing all the time anyway. Exercising regularly is incredibly good for your brain. Just every day, some form of exercise, whether it's walking. Melissa and I have the most amazing conversations on our morning walks, and but they and they're very stimulating for our brain because we come up with concepts. And I think that movement, because many of us don't realize that we learn through kinetic movement. We actually, our brains take in more information when we're moving. So those conversations are not futile. Sometimes you want a peaceful walk where you're being silent and you're just connecting in nature. And sometimes those stimulating conversations, especially if you can do it in person, but even if you're doing it like we do on the phone, because we live, fairly a distance apart, they're incredibly stimulating for the brain. The other big tip for our brain health is get plenty of sleep. And when I say get plenty of sleep, so here I met Bobby 15 or almost 15 years ago, and he slept so much. And I thought, what is wrong with him? What is he, like a baby? Like, what's wrong with him? He sleeps too much. I'm like, I meditate. I don't need to sleep. Well, wrong. The more sleep you get, the more recovery for your body, but also for your brain. Your brain needs to rest. And, we live in a frantic, crazy, technically challenging world, and our brain needs to take a break. So getting as much sleep as possible is really necessary. And I really mean that. 7 is minimum. 7 hours is minimum. The best is 8.5 to 9 hours. That's what I get. I try to get 8.5 to 9 hours. And when I do, the world is just like my oyster. Like all of a sudden I'm like, my brain just feels better. My body feels better. I've recovered from a workout or whatever it is. But getting enough sleep is powerful medicine and throughout your life. So really work on that. And remember all of our energy tips and Melissa's energy tips about keeping your room dark and what you want in there, because making an environment for your sleep is really important. Eat a good diet. A Mediterranean diet is a really good diet to keep your brain vibrant because it's full of good fats. Good fats are good for your brain. Our brain actually runs on fat. And I'm not talking about deep fried food. I'm talking about I'm talking about avocados and olive oil and, and nuts. And, I'm talking about good fat, and good fat is good for you. Raw cream, raw butter, and on another thing, I'll explain why raw is better than pasteurized. So a good diet really helps your brain to stay in tune and stay mentally active. Having those conversations with Melissa in the morning, it's powerful medicine for me. Like, it has made me much quicker in all my conversations. So the more you have mentally active conversations about things that you don't know about or that you're curious about, it makes your brain, you make more brain cells, right? The dendrites grow when you do new things. So staying mentally active and trying new things, that's important too for your brain. Try something new, like whether it's a physical thing or it's some sort of puzzle that you like. Doing new things is great for your brain. And remain socially involved. This is a hard one for me because I tend to be kind of I don't like to socialize very much. And I don't know what that is. That's probably some trauma of my own. But when I stay more socially involved, I feel better about myself because I haven't isolated myself. So stay socially involved and keep your blood vessels healthy. And the way that you do that, your blood being healthy is through your exercise, through your food, through drinking water. It's activity. That's how we keep our blood healthy and alive. And and check your hormone levels and all of that stuff, because all these mechanisms work together to make your brain amazing. So that's my tip for the day. I am Mariel Hemingway. I'm here with Melissa Yamaguchi, and what an amazing show. That was fun.
Amazing. And when you talked about sleep, I want to share with you. I recently taught a class where the audience, I was asking them, they were talking about sleep. And one of the gals raised her hand and said, well, I'm proud to say I only get about 4.5 to 5 hours of sleep a night. And I said, you're proud to say that? And she said, oh yeah. look at me, I'm functioning, I'm getting stuff done. I don't need to sleep. I feel like, I can sleep when I'm dead. And I said, well, that might be sooner than you think. You better slow it down. But it's fascinating that we have
Well,
come.
I thought the same thing when I met Bobby. I was like,
Really?
I meditate. I'm good. Meanwhile, I was running on adrenaline, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had renal fatigue, and I didn't even know it. I was like drinking coffee all the time, like I was. And by the way,
Yeah.
I'm not drinking coffee. This is green tea. It's just so you know. I mean, not that I don't drink coffee. I drink that in the morning, but yeah, it's we justify these things because we're not doing them properly, right? We haven't gotten the right environment. Sometimes
Right.
only sleeping 4.5, 5, 6 hours because we have not created that optimum environment,
But
right?
we're also learning that the early bird catches the worm, and you got to get ahead of everybody, and you got to go, you got to go, you got to go. And if you're sleeping, then you're not going, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's a fear. It's fear based. It's
yeah.
fear based. I
It's
can't sleep.
based. It's very American, puritanical ethic where, we work hard and all we do is work. And yet you go to Europe, they're as productive as we are. They're getting things done and they take a nap in the afternoon and they're very much more relaxed about their time. They take time off.
Fiesta.
I know. And they have like, they take their vacations are paid for. Hello. What's going on?
1 month. You get a month vacation.
What?
I don't know, but if we had a month, we'd be going
I
to
want that.
New Guinea and we'd be going. Listen, this has been a fantastic show. Thank you to Billy Mandarino. Thank you to you, Mariel. It's always such a great show.
It's always such a great show. Thank you to our amazing executive producer, Jeremiah Higgins, and our technical producer, Slater Smith, and Dr. D, who is with us most days, and everybody out there that is helping the show be something great. We're grateful to you. And also check out the Mariel Hemingway Foundation.org. That is a resource navigator. We hope to become, with your help, a place where people can go to find out solutions for mental health problems, no matter where you are, at least in this country to start, but hopefully around the world. So become become active in our mission to help people to become better, healthier, and happier in their mind. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Out Comes the Sun has been a production of Evolve Entertainment. Hosts Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi. Executive producer Jeremiah Higgins. And sound engineer and producer Richard Dr. D. Dugan. Thank you for listening.